Did you ever think that this would be the story that you'd end up writing for your life?
Not really. It's been pretty surprising.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because like careers going like I always thought I'd be successful at whatever I did. I'm a hard
Yeah.
worker. I'm capable, but I've had a lot of different jobs before I even became a chef. I mean, I didn't start cooking professionally really in real kitchens till I was 25, which is kind of a little late. And then like I kind of had this pathway in fine dining that I thought was going somewhere, and then it didn't. And I had another pathway in like wellness cooking that did just kind of hit a wall. And so you kind of think you're going somewhere, then it stops and you have to start over. And,
Yeah. Trial and
when
error.
yeah, for sure. When I moved here, I was literally like, okay, I'm getting out of New York. I'm going to go open a little restaurant in Mystic and just fade into obscurity and just have like a life and be fine. Didn't work out that way.
Yeah, it didn't work out, but you rolled
Yeah.
with the punches.
Yeah, you just got to keep adjusting.
Yeah, and that's what happens. So talk to us a little bit about where you grew up. I read that berry foraging and freshwater fishing were part
Mhm.
of your daily life. So let's kind of start there because I want to hear how that's influenced how you viewed food and hospitality and
Mhm.
community.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a place called Vernon, New Jersey, which is like the very northern tip of New Jersey on the border of New York State. And in particular in Vernon, I grew up in Highland Lakes, which is what we used to call on the mountain rather
Okay.
than in the valley.
Yeah.
And so like the valley was where all the stuff was. There was a ski area there. There was like Action Park, if you're familiar with the documentary on Action Park. And then up in the mountain was where all the lake communities were. And so basically the Appalachian Trail is a stone's throw from my house. We kind of lived on a bunch of lakes, and fishing and, being in the woods really was most of my childhood.
Yeah.
And, especially early on, it was more on the fishing and berry picking scenario. And then later on, it was like the drinking with the keg in the woods with my friends. But, it was always in the woods.
As one goes through life,
As does, yeah.
these are part of the rites of passages of life. Yeah, I hear you. But that must have been such a shock then when you went from that to New York City. I'm like, what a...
Mhm. Weirdly, like my father and my mother were both from New York. So my dad grew up on City Island in New York, which is the seaport of the Bronx. And my grandparents lived there. It's an amazingly
Nice.
weird place. It's like half Nantucket, half Bronx. And it's a mile and a half long island. And so we used to go there all the time on weekends and go to my grandparents' house. And they had a little boat. And kind of that was the saltwater experience for me, for fishing and just for being around the ocean, kind of the saltwater, that environment. And then, of course, like all our vacations were Montauk in the summer. So it was,
Yeah.
that was kind of the trifecta of food influences for me.
Okay. And were they also cooking? Like, and did they teach you how to cook?
My family in general cooked all the time, which was unusual given like from my peers that I grew up with. My mother is Italian, so that kind of helps. And my father just always grew up cooking, which was kind of weird. I think a little bit of it just maybe it's the Southern roots. His family's from Alabama, but like even when he was a kid, he used to just like make himself a cake, because he wanted to
Yeah.
just kind of weird things. He was the youngest. I think that
Guilty.
comes with that. Yeah. That's how I learned how to cook. That's the reason I learned how to cook, because I was home alone. Like by age 7, I was home alone all summer, and I would just watch these cooking shows, and I'd be like, I want like sweets because I have a sweet tooth, and my
Yeah.
mom won't buy me any more cookies. So like, I'm just going to follow these recipes. There's
love
cookbooks,
that.
there's flour. I can do this.
Yeah. Throw a few things together.
As far as when you learned how to cook and when you started to really see what kind of ingredients you have to work with, and it's not living in California or Florida where you've got an abundance of ingredients basically year round, 12 months a year. The seasons change and everything changes on the menu. So is it a little bit harder? You got to learn how to use everything.
I think for sure. I always feel like, and this is New York in general, if you're a farm to table mentality in New York, when I was working at Market Table, for instance, we weren't always directly from farms. We were very seasonal. So it was only seasonal vegetables. And you go to the green market in February and there's like 3 kinds of turnips. That's basically like what you have to choose from.
Yeah.
And I think I've always seen like California chefs who were super talented who come to New York to try to open a restaurant and often fail because they have it so easy out there that they can just, go get these like amazing tomatoes in November and it's fine. And just put some salt on them. But in New York, you really gotta be able to do something with it.
Live in New York, but don't let it make you too hard, but don't live in California to let it make you too soft. So you got to find a medium.
The old adage. Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk to us about working in the restaurant that got the Michelin stars. I want to hear about that and some of your experience moving into that. Because I would imagine being in that kind of environment was be really intense, but also like primo training ground for what you eventually ended up launching, which is your restaurant now.
Yeah. I think, that environment, I don't know how other Michelin-starred restaurants are. I worked for Joel Robuchon, who was at the time like the most awarded. I think still he had, he passed away a couple of years ago, but he had the most Michelin stars of any chef ever. He had 16 Michelin-starred restaurants running simultaneously around the world. And we opened his first one in New York City in the Four Seasons Hotel. And yeah, it was brutal in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It was definitely, I was kind of primed for that. I kind of understood where that was coming from. My wife at the time, my first wife, was the first woman ever to work at Boulé. And that was a different, all these stories about how crazy Boulé was. And a lot of those people were Robuchon people. So I was kind of primed for what it was going to be like, but there was like some physical violence. It was like,
oh my God.
I mean, like the first couple of times when I first got to the front kitchen, I remember I started and they basically put me in a prep role. And the sous chef, I finally got called up to the front kitchen with the executive chef. And the sous chef was like, don't be happy, basically. He's like, he's just bringing you up there because he wants to beat you. And I was like, what are you talking about?
Wow.
Oh, motivating. Very motivating.
I was
right there. Wow.
And that's why. Yeah, pretty much why. He just tortured me. I was the new guy and the culture there was very cutthroat. And it wasn't like help the new guy. It was like, trip the new guy and laugh while the chef beats him, basically.
Wow. And and you're in front of the guests, I believe, at Joel Robuchon, correct? You are.
Yes.
You're part of the show.
I remember I met someone while I was there at a different restaurant who was telling me about their experience coming to the restaurant. Like the garde manger especially was like really like 4 feet from the guests. And he said he was sitting there and he's watching this girl make a salad. And he sees the chef come over and he see her flinch as she's kicked in the shin.
What?
Wow.
And just doesn't stop and just keeps going.
Wow. You never know what you're going to get on this show. Let me tell you, some of these stories of the kitchen, it truly is a battlefield back there. It
was pretty brutal back there.
Yeah.
And that was a particular chef who was, I'm not going to throw him under the bus and mention his name, but the chef that was there at that time, we went through 3 executive chefs who is just, he's Japanese, it's different culture there. And they're like the French on steroids. And that was how it was,
Wow.
But yeah. And then you fall into that culture.
You come out of there thinking I will never be like that? Or were you coming out of there thinking...
Well, the problem is I was like, we never were that bad. And once he left, like it became more just like, verbal and psychological trauma. But I think, I never wanted to be that, but you're stuck in this mode. I mean, you did it for 6 years every day. And I rose from like prep cook to sous chef and we got stars and didn't really know another way to work.
Yeah.
When I left there. But I definitely always felt like what was interesting to me when you see that level of behavior, whether it's yelling or hitting, eventually you get numb to it. And it doesn't work anymore. And so then someone's got to escalate something further to get people to wake up, which is all you're really trying to do as a chef, is trying to get people to focus. And so what I found very quickly is like, the best thing to do is just to be very soft. And yeah, occasionally you might have to raise your voice a little, but you get the same effect if you yell all the time where you have to do something insane. There's just different ways to manage. Yeah. But it took me years to get over it.
You don't want to create a fear environment in people because it's like then they're afraid to push the boundaries, and like you want them to push the boundaries a little bit, but within the gate, I guess. But yeah. So when did you take all of that back and start Shipwright's Daughter? Because I want to talk about your restaurant. It
was
now.
years.
Years.
It was basically Robuchon, and then I was a chef in New York after that. Had a couple of restaurants for about, 5 or 6 years. And then I met my current wife. She got pregnant. I freaked out and got out of restaurants because I thought I couldn't possibly. And then weirdly, we came up here for a birthday party. And I have this adopted aunt who's like my wife's adopted aunt from Rochester. She's like family friend. Her name's Maura. And she's just like a mega connector. She just connects people. It's just who she is. And we came here and we're just like, oh, this is a cool place. Yeah, maybe we always want to live in New England. Like a week later, I get a call from her. She's like, the Whalers Inn they want to open a restaurant. They're looking for a chef. I gave them your resume. They want to meet with you.
Wow.
That's how fast it happened.
Wow.
That's how fast. Nice. I was hired like 30 days later.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great.
That's awesome.